Hey guys, Mr. Jenkins back again for another lesson in Chapter 5. This will be Section 5.4, which is called Point Slope Form. I believe this will be completely new for everybody, so you'll have to really learn it. It won't be review. First of all, our learning target is we want to be able to write and graph linear equations using point slope form. Okay, kind of the same as our last lesson, except our last lesson was slope-intercept form, which we were more familiar with. So getting to it then, what is point-slope form? The equation for a line in slope, point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. So not nearly as simple as what you see with slope-intercept form, just y equals mx plus b. And also another thing that throws people off are these built-in minus signs, right? So that makes whatever you plug in for y1 look the opposite of how you would think. Same thing for x1. Okay, lastly, I think it's important to know that this is fixed. In other words, you don't sub in anything for y. Sorry, forgot what I was doing there for a second. And this is fixed. In other words, this is always going to be y, this is always going to be x, right? So when we're trying to produce a point slope form equation, we need a y value, an m value, and an x value. Okay, and that's where we sub them in. All right, so that's a little bit of the basics, and now we kind of learn by doing. All right, so if basically here our directions are just to write an equation in point slope form, and they give us a point and the slope, right? So that's how it gets its name. Give me a point and the slope, I can give you a point slope form equation pretty simply. All right, so just kind of labeling everything. Obviously, m is clearly labeled. That would mean that 3 is my x1 value and -4 is my y1 value. And I'm going to sub directly into here. So that'd be y minus y1. So instead of minus -4, I'm going to do plus 4. Okay, it's the opposite of what you would think. Y plus 4 equals m, which is 6, times the quantity x minus whatever x1 is, so that'd be 3. So again, as we look at that, notice x was positive, but it says x minus 3. Y was negative, but it says y plus 4. So those built-in negatives really can cause some confusion, all right? And then it also this looks very unsimplified, but this is point slope form, so we would be done in this case. That's a point slope form equation right there. All right, so let me do one more, maybe C. So we have x1 equals 2, y1 equals 4, and m equals 3. So we go y minus whatever y1 is, so that'd be 4, equals m, which is 3, times the quantity, x minus whatever x1 is, so that'd be 2 in this case. Just some things to look out for. When do I know I'm done? If it ever says minus negative, that should be a plus, so that'd be one place you could simplify. And also, your final answer just has 2 variables in it, right? It has a y and it has an x, okay? So now that we've learned a little bit about that, let's go ahead and try to graph using point slope form. That's what we're going to do in example 2. All right, so what we want to do here is we want to pull out the point and we want to pull out the slope. From that, we can graph any line. If I say here's a point and there's the slope, you should be able to produce a line. Okay, so I would say for step 1, we would want to start with the point. All right, so what's the point? So remember, it's y minus y1. So in this case, y1 equals 5. and then x minus x1, right? So that says x plus 2, so that must mean x1 is equal to negative 2. They're the opposite of what they appear. So my starting point, my point from point slope is negative 2 comma 5. Because remember, it goes x comma y, right? So my x is negative 2, my y is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to be my starting point. From there, I use whatever the slope is. So step 2, we use slope. So remember, slope goes on the outside of the parentheses. If it's just a minus sign, that's going to be a negative 1. So m equals negative 1. Or if we want to think about that as a fraction, that could be negative 1 over positive 1, or the opposite of that, positive 1 over negative 1. Okay, so looking at negative 1 over positive 1, that would mean go down 1, right 1. Or the other one, positive 1 over negative 1, that'd mean go up 1, left 1. Remember, that's rise over run. Okay, and there you go. There you have it. You can extend that as long as you want to. You can keep following the same pattern. I'm just going to use my straight edge tool here. Make a nice, neat, and straight line. And then we always remember finish to make it neat with arrowheads going both ways. Okay, let's do B, and then I'll probably save C for you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and label everything. I want to start with my point. So my point would be, so y1 would be, you might think negative 1, but it's positive 1. And then x1 equals positive 2. So my starting point is 2, 1. X is 2, y is 1. That's right there on my graph. And then my slope is, this one's a little easier to tell, 2/3. All right, so positive 2/3, that could be rise 2, run 1, 2, 3. Or it could be, you could think of it as negative 2 over negative 3. So we could also rise negative 2, run negative 3. That was 2 down, 3 left. Then we just finish with our line. You kind of see how I do these. I always like kind of to have 3 points. The more guide points we have, the more accurate our line's going to look. All right, so there you go. And I'll leave C for you. So you might, by this point, be thinking, if we have slope-intercept form, why in the world would we want to have this form? Okay, and looking at example B is a good answer to that question, right? Notice where the y-intercept is. It's not at -1, it's not at 0, right? It's somewhere in between. And I'm telling you right now, your guess would be as good as mine on where exactly that crosses 0, what. Now, we could figure that out algebraically, but again, your guess is as good as mine. Is it 0.5? Is it -0.5? Is it -0.25? It's hard to tell. Thank you. So that's why we want to have point slope form for those weird y-intercepts. Remember, good idea to try C, or at least name the point and the slope. All right, so moving on to example 3. Now we want to be able to write an equation in point slope form. Now here's where, this will get a little bit confusing because depending on what point you use, your equation might look different than mine. All right, so that's where we'll have to have some discussion. Okay, so again, looking at A. If I told you to write a slope-intercept form equation, hopefully you would tell me, well, I don't know what B is. And that is correct. You don't know what B is, right? So this is a good example of where point slope form can help us. Okay, so let's find what looks like a corner point. It looks like maybe that is. You always want to check on these graphs though. So then maybe try to find another one. Looks like maybe that's one. So if we can check again, we want to, all right? So say to get from that one to that one, we go up. I'm going from -1 up to 4, so that'd be up 5, right 3, it looks like. So let's see if we can follow that pattern. Down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, left 1, 2, 3, and it does appear to go through that point as well. So, you know, it's kind of hard to tell where's my corner point. You know, you might mistake like that one, it's pretty close, or that one, but that's why you want to check multiple points. All right, so anyways, here goes. So let's just pick any of those random points. I'll pick one with some negatives. Let's just pick this one, okay? Let's pick, that is -2, -1. And then my slope, I've already talked about that, is rise 5, run 3. So m is 5 over 3. Okay, and then x1 is going to be -2. y1 is going to be -1. All right, so then we sub in. And again, it's going to take a while to remember this, but it's y minus y1. Y minus -1, we're going to write as y plus 1 equals m, so 5/3, times the quantity x minus -2, so x plus 2. Now that's not the only right answer, but I can tell pretty quickly if you do maybe have a right answer, because 5/3 would be the slope no matter what you used. In other words, this can change and this can change, but 5/3 would need to remain the same for everybody's. Looking at the next one, we'll just jump right in and do another one. Okay, so again, not a nice y-intercept, so this would be a good place to know point slope form. Looks like it goes through there and maybe there. So the slope between these two would be, looks like rise 3, run 4. Let's do that again. Let's go down 3 and left 4, and that looks good. Down 3 and left 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to go off my graph, but we can see that it probably would be right there. So looks good. And again, we already said m equals 3 over 4. Let's pick a point, any point. Okay, so I used one with positives last time. Negatives last time. Let's use ones, a point that has all positive values this time. So I'm going to use 1, 2. x1 is 1, y1 is 2, and m is 3 over 4. So my equation will be y minus y1, which is 2, equals m, which is 3/4, times the quantity, x minus x1, which is 1. All right, so let's see. I think I'll probably do the next example on a day 2 notes. So yeah, we'll save that until our next example. So this should give you what you need in order to do most of the 5-4 assignment. Okay, and then we'll spend one more day on it. So hopefully you can get most of the assignment done before that time, and then the rest we'll look at tomorrow. As always, hope these are helpful. And again, this is a new lesson, so you should have questions. Don't be afraid to ask. You've got to advocate for yourself. Have a good one.